Hello and welcome to L Space Archives. Today we are continuing with our 50th anniversary celebration of Starlog Magazine. In 1976, Starlog launched its magazine dedicated to science fiction fans and dedicated to both classic and upcoming science fiction films and TV shows. But aside from their regular magazine, Starlog also released a series of photo guidebooks. Each one was themed for a particular subject in films and television. For example, the aliens or weapons, robots, etc. But today we're going to be looking at science fiction's #1 mode of transportation, and that is spaceships. Now, this first issue came out in 1977, just shortly before Star Wars was released. And you can see how thin this is. This is trying to be a comprehensive look at all the spaceships used in movies and television shows all the way up to 1977. 3 years later, after Star Wars was released, they released this expanded edition. You can see there's what the influence of Star Wars was on films and televisions and spaceships in films and television. This by no means includes all the ships, but it is quite a bit that's been added to here. We're going to go ahead and look through both of these. Even though some of these ships are also included in the expanded edition, I do want to take a look at both of them because this is the version that I originally had when I was 13 years old, and I went through it over and over again. I collected all of those photo guidebooks, and I will continue to be showing these and the various issues of Starlog Magazine in upcoming videos. So let's go to the desk and take a look. So we start off with its first iteration from 1977, showing the arc from When Worlds Collide on the cover. And inside we have the table of contents. We'll just go through these quick. They have the early designs, movies from the 1950s, movies of the 1960s. Then we have a special section on Star Trek, more movies from the 1960s, a section on 2001: A Space Odyssey, and then a section on television, another special section on Space 1999, and then movies of the 1970s. So in this first part of early designs, we have some illustrations and engravings, designs for ships prior to the first film version. So we have Icarus and Daedalus, a woodcut from Albert Dürer, a proposal for a moon ship, a French engraving from 1780, Clipper of the Clouds, an engraving from Jules Verne novel Robert the Conqueror, and then we also have another sort of version or take on that from an American dime novel cover, 20th Century Airships, somewhere around the 1880s. And then number 6 there, we get the first spaceship to be seen. It's A Trip to the Moon, a silent movie by George Millet, based on the Jules Verne novel From the Earth to the Moon. And underneath that is a illustration from that novel. Moving on with those early films, we have Flash Gordon from 1936, Things to Come from 1936 also, which you can see that picture down at the bottom. Captain Video from 1951, and Zombies of the Stratosphere from 1952. And even though this tries to be comprehensive, there's obviously a lot of movies and TV shows that get left out of here. Remember, this is in 1977, so there was no internet yet. There weren't even database applications or business computers. As we move on to the movies of the 1950s, we have The Day the Earth Stood Still. Above that, we can see The Man from Planet X from 1951. Rocket Ship XM from 1950, and Conquest of Space from 1955. And we have Project Moonbase from 53, Invaders from Mars from 1953, and Destination Moon from 1950. And you'll notice a lot of these spaceships in these early days either were had the same basic design of either a rocket ship or a flying saucer. That continues on with Flight to Mars from 51, When Worlds Collide. And then finally we get a different design. It Came from Outer Space, lower left corner of the right page. We get that spherical design based on a story idea by Ray Bradbury. I think this is probably the first time that we have a spaceship that is not either rocket or flying saucer shaped. And we also, back to the flying saucer, we have this island Earth with the Metaluna saucer. And then in the lower right corner we have Spaceways, which I don't believe I've actually ever seen Spaceways. It'd be interesting to go through these and find the movies that I've never seen and see if I could dig them up somewhere and have a little movie marathon of anything that I didn't see. Most of these I have seen or I own copies of. Invasion of the Saucermen, Forbidden Planet, The Cosmic Man, which I don't think I've seen, and I don't think I've seen The Atomic Submarine, The Mysterians, Earth versus the Flying Saucers, and Teenagers from Outer Space. Then we move on to the 1960s. We have Planet of the Apes, and even though this is the 1960s section, and they also include Beneath the Planet of the Apes and Escape from the Planet of the Apes, which use the same prop, the same model for the original film, the Icarus design. Then over here we have those fantastic flying fools and the flying saucer from the movie The Ambushers, the Matt Helm film starring Dean Martin. And another slightly different design from the top picture there, 5 million years to Earth. Then below on the bottom we have First Spaceship on Venus and the Phantom Planet. On the other page we have the Wild Wild Planet, Italian space opera from 1965. And on the top right side we have Countdown from 1967, which has more of a lunar landing type design. And on the bottom there is Journey to the Far Side of the Sun, also known as Doppelganger. We've got the Three Stooges in orbit. Gorath, I've never actually seen Gorath or the Bamboo Saucer. Then we have First Men on the Moon, and the Green Slime, Marooned, Assignment Outer Space. And then we have our Star Trek section. This is a major step forward for television special effects in spaceship designs and models. We have, of course, the Enterprise, the Klingon warship, the Romulan bird of prey, the shuttle, and the ship from the Tholian Web. And then, of course, the spaceships in the kaiju movies, Destroy All Planets, The X from Outer Space, Attack of the Monsters, and Destroy All Monsters. The ship scene in You Only Live Twice from the James Bond franchise, and Battle in Outer Space from 1960. Then we have the section on 2001: A Space Odyssey with the Pan Am shuttlecraft, the rocket bus, the Ares 1B pod, and of course the Discovery 1. Moving into television from a Saturday morning live-action science fiction show originally created by Harlan Ellison, who had some differences of opinion on the way the direction was going in the show, so he took his name off of it, but this is the Starlost. And right underneath that we have the ship from My Favorite Martian, and then the ship from The Invaders. On the other page, from the Outer Limits, from the episode The Xanthi Misfits, we have their bullet-shaped ship. And at the bottom, we have Maureen, Judy, and Penny Robinson on the landing gear of the Jupiter 2 from Lost in Space. And then Jerry Anderson's UFO, which all of Jerry Anderson's productions, whether they're the Super Marionation shows or his live action shows, always had amazing model work. We have the Interceptor, the UFO themselves, and tons of other vehicles and ships, submarines, flying craft, spaceships, all from UFO. On the opposite page, we have the ship from the UFO incident, the story of Barney and Betty Hill. And beneath that, from Irwin Allen's Land of the Giants, we have the Spindrift. And back to more Jerry Anderson from his Super Marionation shows, we have the Fireball XL5. And then we have Thunderbirds with its various vehicles. And we have the space station there, Thunderbird 5, along with Thunderbird 2, Thunderbird 3. And then a section on Space 1999 with the Eagle. And you move on to movies from the 1970s. The top one there is from Silent Running, starring Bruce Dern. And below that, Dark Star, which I saw when I was 14 years old in Phoenix, Arizona. Was attending my first Comic-Con convention called Leprechaun. It was Leprechaun 4, which was held in a hotel just down the street from where I live now, which has just closed their doors. It looks like they're tearing it down after all this time. On the opposite side, we have the porn parody of Flash Gordon, Flush Gordon. If you know, you know. Juxtaposed against Flash Gordon, on the next page, we have Escape to Witch Mountain from Disney on the top of both those pages there. And we also have ships from the War Between the Planets, Future World, the sequel to Westworld, and the last one there is the giant floating stone head from Zardoz, where we get to see Sean Connery in a diaper. Now, even though this was before Star Wars came out, they did have production art from Star Wars, some concept art from Macquarie that they did have on hand, and so we get that on the back cover. In the front, it's funny, they describe this here. It says on the back cover, Star Wars from 20th Century Fox, 1977. This is one of the pre-production paintings for the movie, beautifully rendered by artist P. Macquarie. It shows the sleek four-vaned fighter rocket created for the film. Several other small and large ships of different designs are also used throughout the course of the story. The metal-lined canyon in which it is traveling is only one of a system of mile-long grooves built across the surface of a planet-sized war machine called the Death Star. The action is from a monumental climatic space battle that takes place near the end of the film. So they did manage to get at least one piece of concept art in this. And now we're going to move on to 3 years later, when we get the new enlarged edition. And on the front cover, we can see the Enterprise from the Star Trek The Motion Picture, along with the Deep Space Earth probe, the Cygnus, for the black hole. And on the right is the famous dogfight in space scene from Star Wars. We have the table of contents. I'm not going to go through all of these, though we'll get to them as we get to them, but you can see there is a photo from Star Wars in the final act there. And then again, we have the introduction, which goes back over some of those early design concepts. with a brief history, early designs, and then we move into some of those early films. The bullet ship loaded into the launch cannon in the 1936 production of Things to Come, and the V-2 rocket launch. Here again we have the Metal in a Saucer from The Silent Earth, the Discovery 1 from 2001: A Space Odyssey, and there at the bottom we have the Jelician spaceship from Message from Space, another film that has some really great model work in it. I have a soft spot for that movie, no matter how ridiculous it is. And then we go to Spaceships on Film from 1902 to 1949. And this list starts listing off all the different films that have spaceships. They don't necessarily have photos for every film. We do get a photo from A Trip to the Moon from 1902, and from Women in the Moon, which is from 1929, also a silent movie. On the other side there we have some from the Flash Gordon serial, another shot from Things to Come, and at the bottom, Just Imagine, which is from 1930. Then we move to the era from 1950 to 1959, Destination Moon, and then Missile Monsters, also known as Flying Disc Men from Mars. We have Rocket Ship XM, The Man from Planet X, and The Day the Earth Stood Still. Another shot from Destination Moon, Commander Cody, Invaders from Mars. And then we have a color section of early spaceships on film, featuring Forbidden Planet, Destination Moon, This Island Earth, and When Worlds Collide. We have another shot from When Worlds Collide. And a 2-page spread for Rocket Ship XM. And War of the Worlds and Flight to Mars. And over here we have Satan's Satellites, and there in the center, those three guys, the one pulling the crate up of supplies, that is Leonard Nimoy. And then another shot from It Came from Outer Space. And we have Spaceships on TV. Up that inset on the top is Space Patrol, Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, and Rocky Jones. On the opposite side, we get a good photo from Fireball XL5, and below that, the Thunderbirds. And then a spread on Star Trek, featuring the Romulan Bird of Prey, obviously the Enterprise, and the Tholian ship from the Tholian Web again. And then ships from Space 1999, down there in the bottom corner, we have the Eagle, and the opposite side with the flames across it, we have Tabor's ship. Up on top, the Satazius. And a Saturday morning live action show. This is Jason of Star Command, a spin-off from the other Saturday morning live action show, Space Academy. And we have Project UFO, and below that, The Invaders. And some photos from Project Moonbase and Spaceways. Then we have a rocket from Riders to the Stars, which I also don't believe I've seen. Conquest of Space, another shot from This Island Earth, and a shot from Earth versus the Flying Saucers. A couple of stills from Forbidden Planet, and then on the bottom, Invasion of the Saucermen. On the opposite page, we have The Cosmic Man and It, the Terror from Beyond Space. a atomic submarine, teenagers from outer space, and the Mysterians. On the opposite page, assignment outer space, and then battle in outer space, and Three Stooges in orbit with their submarine tank helicopter. The illustration from First Spaceship to Venus, and also Gorath. On the opposite page, Robinson Crusoe on Mars, and Planet of the Vampires. Thunderbirds are go, and the X from outer space. And the opposite side there, we can see Attack of the Monsters. They're in the foreground. There's a ship with fins on top of the saucer ship. Again, we have the Planet of the Apes, Escape from the Planet of the Apes. And on the opposite side, the space bus from 2001 Space Odyssey, a ship from the movie Green Slime, and a ship from Marooned. A lunar lander type spaceship from Moon 02, and then a really fuzzy image from Silent Running. We get some better images later on in the book. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Again, we have Flesh Gordon and Dark Star. And by the way, we're now into the 1970 to 1980 range. There's Star Wars, Message from Space, and Battlestar Galactica. We have another color section here with Star Trek the Animated Series, and then a shot from Doctor Who. This is from the Invasion of Time serial. Then a 2-page spread from Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. And Jerry Anderson's UFO. Another shot from the UFO incident, and that same shot from Lost in Space. And then we move on to modern spaceships on film with Star Trek the Motion Picture, The Black Hole, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and Star Wars. We get a 2-page spread on Star Trek the Motion Picture. And a spread on Star Wars. Another shot from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. 2 shots from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And on the other side, Journey to the Far Side of the Sun. And then a 2-page spread for Silent Running. The Day the Earth Stood Still. Starship Invaders. Scene from Alien and scene from the Black Hole. We'll get more of those pictures later. And there we have Moonraker. Concept art for Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. And then the remake of The Shape of Things to Come. Inset from Stella Star, aka Star Crash. More from Star Trek the Motion Picture, and Unidentified Flying Oddball. I'm going to Spaceships on TV from 1949 to 1959. There's Captain Video and Space Patrol. We also have, without pictures, we have little insets here on Buck Rogers, Tom Corbett, Rocky Jones, Space Ranger, Men into Space, Rod Brown. And then we have Supercar. We have the TARDIS from Doctor Who. The Zanti Misfits again from The Outer Limits. Another shot of the Jupiter 2 from Lost in Space. A scene from Captain Scarlet, my favorite of the Super Marionation shows. Another one from Star Trek, a ship from Joe 90. More shots from UFO. And then we go from 1970 to 1980. Here we have Star Trek animated series. The Tomorrow People. The Day After Tomorrow. Another one of the UFO incident. Blake 7. Space 1999 and Project UFO. Also see they have a section on here on the Lost Saucer, another Saturday morning live action show starring Jim Nabors and Ruth Buzzy. There we have Space Academy and Jason of Star Command. More Battlestar Galactica, and we also have Battle of the Planets with the Phoenix ship. I always wanted a model of the Phoenix ship. I love that show. When I was a teenager, I saw a model for sale in a Ben Franklin's type store. I didn't have money to get it at the time, and sadly, I never again saw one of those model kits. We have Pigs in Space and more Buck Rogers. And then we have the ship from Quark, who was a space garbage man. It's a comedy created by Buck Henry from Get Smart fame, starring Richard Benjamin, and the infamous Galactica 1980. And below that, Andy Griffith in Salvage One, a junk man who builds his own spaceship. We have Star Blazers, originally Space Cruiser Yamato. Up on the opposite page we get a still from Star Crash, also known as The Adventures of Stella Star, and 2001 A Space Odyssey. Spread on Battlestar Galactica. In fact, they get a extra spread on Battlestar Galactica. And then Alien with the Nostromo. And on the next page, the strange alien ship. And we have First Men on the Moon. I love this movie. I love the book even more. And then we have Superman the movie. And again, that same shot from Dark Star. Again, Destroy All Monsters, Escape to Witch Mountain. And then pre-production painting by Ralph McQuarrie showing the TIE Fighter attacking the Millennium Falcon as the Death Star looms ahead. Then Mars and Beyond. And that same shot again from 5 Million Years to Earth. And then we have Saturn III, starring Kirk Douglas and Farrah Fawcett. And The Black Hole. And then on the back cover, we have The City of Light from Battlestar Galactica, Close Encounters, Destination Moon, and Prince Ardella's flagship from Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. And also, again, we have the ship launching from When Worlds Collide. And that does it. That takes care of Starlog's photo guidebooks for spaceships. I've collected all of these photo guidebooks, as well as quite a few of the issues. I'll be showing these videos at least once a month. I'll do a Starlog video as we continue to celebrate the 50 years of Starlog Magazine. That's it for this time. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.